This video deals with the portrait of a lady, part 1. It was written by Kushwant Singh. 11th English, Prose, Unit 1, Samachir Kalvi, prepared and presented by Mr. P. Velumani, Department of English, ADHIYAMAN MATRIC Higher Secondary School, UTHANGARAI. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes, his long white beard covered with the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. Yeah, in this story, that brings out the bond between the author and his loving grandmother. Here, the narrator and the author itself. The Kushwant Singh loved her grandmother very much. So here, my grandmother looked like everybody's grandmother. She was an old woman. I had known her 20 years. So now the author's age was 20 years. She had been old and wrinkled. What's meant by wrinkled? A small fold or line in the skin and her body. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. Okay, some people said that the author's grandmother was once been young and pretty. What's meant by pretty? The attractive and nice in her outside of the body. But that was hard to believe. But some people said that information the author never believed. Then after move to his grandfather. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. Okay, what is meant by portrait? It is a drawing or painting of someone. His grandfather's photo, it is hanging above the mantelpiece. What is meant by mantelpiece? A structure of wood or marble. It is hanging above and around a fireplace. Then his grandfather wore a big turban. What's meant by turban? It looked like Punjabi people used on his head. And loose fitting clothes. Okay, it looked like for some singers are using white and some kind of clothes. It is very loose fitting. And then his long white beard. What's meant by a white beard? It is a white in color of hair. It covered with the best part of his chest. And Arthur's grandfather looked at least 100 years old. So everything it is describing of the narrator's grandfather. While he was seeing that picture, it is hanging in the mantelpiece. It looked like a big turban and loose fitting clothes and a white beard covered with a chest. It looked like 100 years old. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or a children. He looked as if could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part. We treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. The author thought that his grandfather did not look the kind of person who would have a wife or a children because the picture explains 100 years old. So the author thought that she had no wife or a children, but he had lots and lots of grandchildren. But my grandmother, being young and pretty still, according to his point of view, his grandmother always being young and pretty. What's mean by pretty? The attraction of outside. But sometimes this thought almost revolting. What's mean by revolting? Against or opposite. The grandmother often told some stories when she was used to play. That seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. What's meant by fables? The false stories. Prophets, saints as a lacking of sense. Some stories she used to narrate. It was happening in her old age. She had been always short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been, as we had known her, old. So terribly old that she could not have grown older, and had stayed at the same age of 20 years. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She had always been short and fat. The narrator's grandmother was always moving here and there. She looked like a short, and his body was fat and slightly bent. That old people are always bent and walk here and there. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles. What is meant by crisscross? The pattern of intersecting straight lines. The straight lines, it may be moving here and there in her body. No, we were certain she had always been as we had known her. Okay, in my 20 years, always she looked like the same. She never grown or she never be old. Old, so terribly old. What is meant by terribly? Old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older and stayed at the same age of 20 years. Terribly, very, very old, but she looked like at the same age of 20 years when I saw her in my birth. She could never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. What's the difference between pretty and beautiful? Pretty is a nice and attractive on her outside. Beautiful, the feelings to the sense of inner side and outer side of her body and face. She hobbled about the house in a faultless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of a rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in an inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountain, an expanse of pure white serenity breathing peace and contempt. Okay, here she hobbled about the house in a spotless white with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop and the other telling the beads of her rosary. Okay, what's meant by hobbled? Walked with a difficulty or unsteadily walk. Always she had a rosary. What is meant by rosary? Some kinds of beads. It is used to pray somewhere. In his house, the spotless white with a hand resting. Okay, as he was roaming here and there, bending some more. She always walking here and there, and one hand resting on her waist to balance a stoop. Stoop means bend. The other telling the beats of her rosary. So simply she bend and walking here and there and murmuring something in her voice. Her silver locks were scattered untidily. What's mean by silver locks? Her white loosely arranged hair covering her wrinkled scattered face. The silver locks it refer her white hair. It was scattered. What is mean by scattered? Moving here and there in her face. Untidily. What is mean by untidily? So it is not a steady. It is a hanging on her face, moving here and there. Over her pale. What is mean by pale? Yellow in color. And puckered face. Puckered means wrinkled. And her lips constantly moved. Inaudible prayer. Audible means we can hear. Inaudible, we can't hear. While she is moving here and there, she murmurs something, but we can't able to hear her voice. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountain. How that winter time there was full of coal, and the drops it is spread on the mountain. It looked like white in color. An expanse of pure white serenity, breathing pace. What is meant by serenity? That is a calm or a peaceful manner. And contempt. Contempt means a satisfaction. With a full satisfaction, she murmured or said something and roaming here and there. Thank you.